Gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Yo, what's up? What's going on, everybody? This is the December 13th, 2020 episode of the Boxing Source radio show. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source, here on the airwaves and on social media. You can follow us through our social media pages on Facebook through the Boxing Source. We have a Facebook page, and also we have a Facebook group if you want to join the Facebook group. And we also have an Instagram page through the Boxing Source. So you could search the Boxing Source. You'll be able to find us and follow us on Instagram. We are also on Twitter, where we give updates on most of the action that does go on over the course of the weekends. You hit us with the handle at Boxing Source 2, and you can follow us on Twitter. And we also do have a YouTube page where we, have live conversations sometimes during the course of the week, and also talk about various topics within the boxing world. So if you look up the Boxing Source and you could follow that channel, be greatly appreciated. Number to dial in to join the live boxing talk here is 347-237-5539. Once again, the number is 347-237-5539. Press the one key to get on queue, and you'll be able to talk live on the show. And we are getting in and we are getting at it as we had like a lot of action that did take place here. And that, the thing on Saturday, man, it was just something. And you had a lot of action, going, starting off with of course, the unified heavyweight championship bouts that did take place at the SSE Arena in London, not the SEC Arena, as Mr. Brian Kenny did mention at one point, but the SSE Arena, as you had the defending champion there, Anthony Joshua, the IBF, WBA, WBO, and IBO heavyweight champion, going up against the IBF mandatory in Colbert-Arboleda. Colbert-Arboleda had been waiting a considerable amount of time, before this fight could take place. We knew him as, being the IBF mandatory back in 2017, but he was unable to make that defense in 2017, which was months after he fought and beat Kevin Johnson. He had a shoulder injury pretty much a couple weeks before that fight was scheduled to take place on October 28th, 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And so Anthony Joshua defended those titles against Carlos Takam and was able to get a stoppage victory there. So Colbert-Arboleda, had a few fights afterwards. One fight against Yuri Fury was part of the card last night. Bogdan Dinu, where he had a stoppage victory or a KO victory there. And then his last fight in November against Rydell Booker, where he got a decision win, right? And of course, you know about Anthony Joshua regaining those heavyweight titles from Andy Ruiz Jr. after losing them on June 1st, 2019, right? So, um, that thing in last December over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, he was able to, pretty much control the distance, spacing, use the jab, be very consistent with the jab against Andy Ruiz Jr. And Ruiz just didn't have any type of answer for it, and got the unanimous decision win to get those world titles back. You know what I mean? And by doing that, he was able to have that thing where he would defend against the mandatory challenger. And the IBF mandatory was well overdue, so they honored that IBF mandatory. That was Colbert-Arboleda. So my thing is that with Colbert-Arboleda, he looked like he was very confident, very loose going into this fight. Yo, champion, I show you I good. I show you I better. Your trainer knows I'm better. I champion. And we came into this fight, and I'm telling you, man, this particular fight, he was the lightest that I remember him being in his almost like his entire career there, coming in at 239 and a half pounds. I mean, I hadn't seen that, from him, at any point. I mean, that's pretty much like the lowest he's been since he started his career back in 2009. He was pretty much a shade over 140 against Huey Fury, but he usually was in the mid 240s to mid 250s over the course of his career, and he was like at 247. And the last time he would fight for the world titles against Vladimir Klitschko, and that was back in 2014, where he got stopped within 5 rounds, right? So, I mean, this one, he was going in there at 240, looked kind of slender and slim. There against Anthony Joshua. Joshua was there at 240, shade over 240. He was like 237 in his last fight, but once he's like at 240, in the low 240s, like he's there to kind of like work his work the jab and be a little bit more mobile there with his movements. So that's what you had coming into this particular fight. A good number of people kind of like were unsure of which version of Anthony Joshua that we were going to see, right? Would we see the Anthony Joshua of the last fight against Andy Ruiz Jr., where he really didn't necessarily, kind of like take risks, so to speak, or, be a little bit more aggressive and more forceful in that second fight against Andy Ruiz. Just kind of worked off the jab, threw a couple of power shots, but, never really get himself engaged to really try to hurt Andy Ruiz. Just get in there, handle business, get the win, get the titles back. That's what he did there over in Riyadh. That was like what, December 7th. That's December 7th there, man. So pretty much about a year. Pretty much, what is it, 367 days or whatever it is. So whatever, who's counting? All right, bet. So I mean, we saw what happened there. Anthony Joshua, seeing that he was a taller man, seeing that he had the longer range, he established that early. Just looking, kind of gauging where Pulev was as far as like positioning is concerned, and then he just started pumping the jab, and he kind of mixed things up throwing the jabs to the body, throwing it upstairs, kind of being uh, throwing off the timing of a Colbert-Pulev because some people were talking about, oh, Colbert-Pulev has his jab, he has a piston-like jab, he can do this, he can do that, but it's one thing to have that type of jab, but it's another thing to actually use the jab and not be jabbed in the process. And that was what was going on there in the early rounds as you had, Anthony Joshua just mixing things up. He was mixing things up upstairs, downstairs with the jab, throwing a couple of, body shots in there, also with the punch, the lead left jab to the body. And then, we gets into the second round, kind of introduces the inside work there, in the clinch, almost in the clinch with Pulev. But once you're close to the inside, try to, work in the uppercut, which he was able to do. And then in the third round, he comes in and he kind of like tries to gauge what Pulev is doing, watches him in good distance, and then sees like, when Pulev throws, he kind of leans back or steps back. And then one time, you had Pulev throw his left hand for the left jab. Anthony Joshua leans back, comes back with the right hand, affects, Pulev there with the right hand that, stuns Pulev. Pulev gets to the defensive, and then Joshua follows up with about, a few left hooks and right hands. Then gets Pulev to the ropes, throws in a couple of uppercuts, and it was like a barrage that had Colbert-Pulev running over to his corner and had his back turned to his corner. And Joshua was still throwing, and then, the referee stepped in to give Pulev an 8 count there, which we'll talk about later. Like, he shouldn't have gotten an 8 count. But Pulev was able to get through that. And then you just saw Joshua kind of like try to set up his power shots again. He was, keeping his distance, throwing a jab, then come in with the, power shot, whether it's the right hand or the uppercut. And when he was up close, he just kept throwing uppercuts. Then another uppercut was able to score to have Colbert-Pulev lean back and lose his balance and go down on the canvas, pretty much on his back almost. And he was able to get through another count. So, yeah, 2 knockdowns scored in the third round. And, for me, I just felt like it was going to be a matter of time before Joshua was going to, try to get Colbert-Pulev out of there. But what we did see there was, Anthony Joshua still just throwing a jab, kind of keeping his distance and getting his rounds in, seeing what Colbert-Pulev could do. Pulev was, trying to sneak in the right hands, but most of the right hands that he was able to throw were when he was at full extension or when they were in close quarters that Pulev tried to, go around and hit Anthony Joshua on the back of the head there. He was getting admonished by the referee, but nothing to, where he was getting a point either taken away or anything like that. I think there was like, one round there, like in the 7th, where you just saw Anthony Joshua continuously land uppercuts after uppercuts to really affect Colbert-Pulev, and Pulev just didn't have an answer for those uppercuts. And then you move to the 8th round where Pulev did land a solid shot on Anthony Joshua, but nothing that, really affected Joshua. Then you get to, the penultimate round, the 9th round. Joshua was still able to execute what he was able to do over the course of the fight. Like I said, consistent with the jab, then landing them uppercuts. The uppercuts affected Pulev once again, and his legs just couldn't hold up, and he tried to clinch, but Joshua just shifted around, kept landing the uppercut, landed it again, and had Pulev stumbling to the canvas there near the end of the ninth round. There was about a couple of seconds left, or about like 20 or so seconds left. And when Pulev got up, left jab, right hand, right square to the chin. Bah! And Colbert-Arboleda could not beat that 10 count. So you had Anthony Joshua getting a ninth round KO victory, retaining those heavyweight belts, and looks ahead to 2021. You got like a good amount of things that could happen in 2021, but there's only 2 fights that are possible for Anthony Joshua at that particular point, which I'll go into a little bit later. I want to get in first caller to reach in from the 205 area code. What's happening? You're on the Boxing Source radio show.
I'm driving, so be the background.
Oh, so you leaving all them Black Excellence events that were happening in Atlanta, or what the brunches and all the type of stuff that I was hearing about for this weekend, or what?
No, I'm actually leaving from Birmingham, Alabama, heading to the house, but nope, I didn't do any events. I'm not really sure the events you have to tell me about.
Yeah, I feel you. I know that a few friends kind of like went over to Atlanta this weekend for a series of events that was happening, but I was like, nah, I ain't gonna give myself into all of that. Like I said, I was watching all the boxing that happened over the course of the day. So like I said, you had that main event there at the SSC Arena in London, and Anthony Joshua, just got in there, got loose, and pretty much did his thing against Colbert-Arboleda.
Yeah, Joshua won, and seemed to control most of the fight. Pulev just kind of wanted to get a hold of him and just land anything that he could. But something about the fight or Joshua's style that makes me, his body language and or posturing does not seem confident to me. Like it's like he does it, but then I don't know when he does it. Like you can tell his confidence grows once he gets the fighter hurt. That's when you can tell he's at supreme confidence and really believe in what he's doing. But I don't know, just something about his demeanor. Like even when he's just jabbing, he just looks kind of I don't know if anxious is the word, but he looks something about him looks like, does he feel like he's gonna win this fight, or is he just like going through the motions? Or do he believe that him having, it's like he's sort of expecting somebody to hit him with something big or something. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it really, like I don't know if when he jabs and stuff, he believes in what he's doing. Like it's just something about it that looks weird to me. And I could be projecting on him, by the way, but hopefully somebody else noticed it too, so I can have confidence that I'm not projecting.
Well, I don't know if any. We'll see if any of the callers will kind of like repeat what you said, but I think that you had one fighter that was in attendance that watched that thought the same thing that you were talking about here, and that's Dylan White. Dylan White felt like Anthony Joshua looked tentative in the ring there against Colbert-Arboleda, and that he was unsure if he was just going to, be the guy that fought like he did against Andy Ruiz Jr. last December, or fight like the guy that, fought against the likes of, Charles Barton and Dominic Brazil, to Eric Molina, to Vladimir Klitschko, to Carlos Takam, to kind of like I would say a Alexander Povetkin. You know, he kind of like fought like he was fighting off. Well, he would usually like fight off his back foot, but he would usually try to get or catch fighters off counter punches. So I mean, he's had the jab, but he would try to get in the mix a little bit more and catch his opponents with a counter punch. And once he catches him with the counter punch, then he would blitz his opponent and overwhelm them, and then have them in trouble and knock them down. But here he kind of like, makes things up to where he's like, okay, I'm going to just go off the jab, go off the jab, go off the jab, and then see what could happen off of that jab. But then, follow up with mixing things by going on the inside like he did in the third round and catching his opponents with the uppercuts, because the uppercut is usually his, best punch overall. Like when, his opponents get caught by that uppercut, that's, been trouble for him. So he kind of like implemented both of those styles in here, but it kind of like seemed to some that it wasn't packaged together that smoothly. So that's why you kind of like have some people saying that it didn't like look all too well, even though he did score the ninth round KO victory with 4 knockdowns over the course of that fight. Let me see here. I think it's from the 202 area code coming in. Is this Mr. Give Me My Credit?
Mr. Give Me My Credit, Mr. Unbiased, Mr. Who You Pick. What's up, fellas?
Yo, what's happening?
What's happening, man?
Yeah, just assessing the performance there by Anthony Joshua. I kind of get, two sides of the spectrum from people when it comes to Anthony Joshua's performance. What did you think about it there with this 9th round KO win over Colbert-Arboleda?
I mean, that's actually the only fight that I saw all weekend, and I feel like he looked as good. He looked as well, but the problem, I guess, not even a problem, really. It's hard to gauge how this fight translates to better opposition. I'm not saying Pulev was terrible, but probably, he's on the downside. So,
yeah.
I don't know how much to take from this fight in terms of how good Joshua looked, but he looked more variety in his punches. The uppercut was working, like you guys said, was working great. I mean, he couldn't miss with it.
Right.
But again, I just don't know how much I could take from this fight being as though it's a Pulev, 38, 39?
39.
It's hard to, gauge. Yeah, it's hard to gauge with how this performance, moves on for Joshua going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it with, Colbert-Arboleda, given that he's fought, Bogdan Dinu and, what is it, like a Kevin Johnson or whatever it is. And also his last fight, he had a, decision win over Rydell Booker. And Rydell Booker was pretty much like, just there just to be there, so to speak. So, even though, like I was saying at the beginning of this podcast, that that Colbert-Arboleda came in there in the lowest weight that he's been pretty much since he started professional boxing, that didn't necessarily translate to, him doing things to try to get to Anthony Joshua. Like you kind of like use one of Joshua's previous fights, the Alexander Povetkin fight. Povetkin was giving Joshua, multiple different looks, feinting a lot, kind of waiting to see what Joshua would do. And, was able to get to the inside and land a good number of shots in that fight. So you compare, that type of fight to this fight where Colbert-Arboleda, even though he was light, he was still like inactive as far as like throwing the jab, particularly in the first round, because you really didn't get any punches thrown until like halfway through that round. And, the times that he did throw punches, either he would lunge forward and try to land, or once he threw the jab while he was out of range. And that's how he got caught with that right hand counter in the third round, was he left himself open with the jab while he was out of range. And also, Joshua kind of like sliding back a little bit, and then Joshua coming forward with the right hand and catching him. So, I can't really, gauge, some people, I can understand how they can't really gauge it off of, the opponent that he had. It's just that we got to see what would be next for Anthony Joshua there. But him kind of like implementing both styles from, what he used to do to what he did in December could, look good for, a few people though.
He seems to be, and I don't necessarily remember Joshua's inside game, but he seems to be very confident in stepping inside and throwing those uppercuts. And I don't know if it's based on the opponent or it's based on he's getting better inside fighting. But it seemed like he started well with the jab, and then I don't know if he's seen that Pulev wasn't taking the initiative, so it allowed him to, I don't want to say get courage, but it allowed him to take more risks. And it seemed like he was willing to try to get inside more often than he normally does. And it seemed like as it got more and more into the fight, he got more and more comfortable to stepping inside and just not necessarily just throwing the jab, which he was doing well with. But it seemed like he felt like, hey, I can get away with a little more. Let me take a little more chances. And I don't know if that, bodes well for better competition. But I don't know if he's getting better at it, or it was just one of those fights where he was more comfortable being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, when it have this instance here where, like, he hadn't fought in over 12 months, so you can't really see if this is, implemented as part of his overall game, or if it's just something where he, like you said, felt more comfortable in doing. But for me, I mean, I've seen Joshua in the past kind of like implement uppercuts and, use that as, like his main weapon. If I'm not mistaken, like in his fight against Carlos Takam, he was able to knock down Carlos Takam with an uppercut. So that was, it was known as like one of his best punches. It's just that you haven't really, seen him kind of, use it as much. Well, at least in the last fight, because in this fight against Andy Ruiz in June, he used that uppercut and then followed it with the hook in order to knock Ruiz down. So I think that's been part of his game. Is just that once he goes to the inside and he feels that he can land that at will, then he's going to use it a little bit more. You know what I mean? But as far as like taking risks, like after that first knockdown, he kind of like said, you know what? I'm going to step in, try to set up things, set it up, then come through with it. And he was like more, to me, he was more precise in trying to get another knockdown in that instance, instead of trying to rush things or try to get himself smothered or, try to tire himself out, because that was another thing that, people kind of like criticize about him, is that he could get a knockdown early and then use up his energy and tire himself out. And so I think, with this cardio work and trying to keep his weight at a certain, range, he was trying to see about keeping that type of endurance so that even if he does score a knockdown early and he's not able to finish the fight, that he could, still kind of like conserve himself or get himself in, good type of, shape and status to where he could have that sharpness later on in the fight, which you kind of like saw here.
Was the uppercut, was that the punch that he landed against Klitschko that almost took Klitschko face off?
Yeah.
Was that an uppercut?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, right uppercut.
Yeah, so that seemed like it seems like he does have used that quite a bit in his arsenal. He looked at more fluid. Is that the right word?
Yeah, fluid.
I can't remember if that's right. Yeah, he didn't look as stiff as he used to do. I don't know if he's not weight training as much, but he looked at more fluid in his movement and in his punches. He doesn't look as stiff and robotic like he used to.
Well, I mean, that to me kind of like goes into him being in the high, like I would say the high 240s. When he's in the high 240s, around 250s, then that's when you kind of like see most of that muscle mass and type of bulk that a lot of people see. You saw it with Klitschko. You've seen it against Takam. Like he was the biggest he was at against Takam, but as long as he's like in the low 240s, then he kind of like moves around the ring a little bit more, was able to duck a lot of shots that Colbert-Arboleda was throwing, or step back and kind of like move around the ring a little bit better there. So if he's like sitting there at a solid like 240, 241, 242, then yeah, he could, do those things from a defensive standpoint. And then also, like you said, being more fluid with his punches and the shots. So if he just comes in like with a double jab and that type of thing, then he's going to try to work on kind of staying around that particular range so that he doesn't feel like he's overworking himself to throw punches,
Hey, Mike, Brady, what you think about it? I ain't hear your take.
So I thought, he did what he needs to do in terms of jabbing, in terms of staying away from Colbert-Arboleda, and, when it came time for him to throw the bigger shots, he threw them. However, the one thing that looked at odd, or I had exception or questions, was he looked uncomfortable. He looked like, it's hard for me to explain fully, but something about him looked like he was either timid, or it looked like he didn't have a lot of confidence or didn't know what his identity or what he wanted to do. The jabbing and stuff, that's all well and cool, but if you think about his demeanor when he fought Andy Ruiz, you could tell in his mind he was like, I'm just going to keep this down outside. I'm going to win this fight just by peppering him with my jab. I'm not going to let them get to me. I just want to, make it to the end of this fight. And I'm not going to throw in big and gas myself out. And I just want to win the fight. And it's sort of like, but that to me I didn't see the confidence that I saw from him that I saw from that first fight when he was like, okay, I might jab you, but I'm about to take your head off. Like with all the other fights that the guy with the long arm, you just mentioned him, James, who Joshua fought and knocked out, and they fought in the amateur. He beat him in the amateur. Dylan White. When he touched Dylan White, when he touched him and got to Dylan White, you could tell he had the confidence. And it's like I didn't truly see that confidence until he had what's his name hurt, and then that's when he started confidently throwing them uppercuts. He's confidently, trying to throw right hands and big hands. But I don't know if the thing that he's afraid of is he's like, I can't overexert myself because I'll gas out. But it just was something about him that looked afraid or timid when he was throwing the jab. And he's just like, let me just stay in this space. Let me just stand this cocoon. Let me stand this shield. Because, there's something that kind of rattles me or makes me concerned. So something about him looked like he didn't have confidence in himself until he hurt the person. And that's when I saw the confidence come out. But it was like all
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that? It's an odd. I don't know, James, you want to touch on my Felix Verdejo fight. When guys get stopped for the first time, when they get hit with any type of meaningful punch, it's just like a hold and wait and see approach. Like, it's like you just never, when they get hit with one good punch, it's like there's a pause in them that's like, they're right on that teetering point where they're doubting. Not doubting, and I think Andre Ward made this point last night, where they're fighting with their past, like in terms of going back to that place. And I think somebody else, another person who will struggle with that is J-Rock. When they get hit, there's something in them that's like, I'm trying to fight not to go back to that place where I don't want to be. And you see it in a lot of guys that get their first knockout loss. So that may be part of what you're speaking to. But like you said, I did see him get more comfortable once he was able to hurt him and once he felt like he was really not coming back from Pulev.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I will push back on is that, so I feel you about J-Rock, but I think J-Rock's problem is that he can hit too clean and his chin is not able to withstand that. Like I think J-Rock has the mindset, J-Rock has the temperament of a person who was very disciplined, who will endure, who will go through the fire and say, if I can take your punches, I'm gonna dish it out just as much as I give it to you. It's the other guy from Maryland that he took his belts from, who didn't want to fight him after that. He had to fight with him. And everybody else, J-Rock fought that gave him, war, that J-Rock won the fight. J-Rock just can't take no punches. He can hit way too clean with shots. You don't see him, and then he just literally get hurt and concussed and stuff. And then he physically can't take the stuff, but mentally, I think he would try to endure. So I think he's a bit different than those guys, because mentally, J-Rock is a tough guy. He just physically can't take it. Mentally, I question Joshua's mental testicular fortitude. I test his mental toughness. I question Verdejo's toughness. I question mental fortitude. Like, you saw him get hit, and, he threw the kid to sink, but then after that, it's like, it's just something you see these guys, but you like, man, you gotta be the one throwing punches all the time for that to look like success for you. Even just moving and getting out the way and stuff. It was a crazy fight watching the Tanaka, whatever dude name was.
Nakatani.
Yeah, I think Joshua it's a different breed, man. Like, people talk about Deontay Wilder and talk about the lack of skill. But one thing I can tell you about Deontay Wilder, that's one tough son of a gun.
I knew this was going to lead into some type of promotion of Deontay Wilder when you were talking about, I'm unsure about Joshua. I'm unsure about Joshua's toughness. I knew it. I just knew it.
I'm going to use a cliche for real, recognized real. I can tell that you have some type of toughness. And typically, that toughness is grew. You remember the Batman movie?
Mike, don't make me quote Jay-Z, please. I don't want to do it.
The one with Bane, the Batman movie, the one with Bane, where Batman was fighting Bane, and then Bane was like, you adapted to the darkness. Motherfucker, I was born in the darkness. The darkness, the darkness doesn't scare me. I was born in the darkness. You just adapted it and tried to get over the fear of it. I was born in this. The thing I'm saying that to say is poverty. Let's use poverty, for example. I don't know Joshua's circumstances. I can't speak on it. But one thing I can say, people who have poverty typically fight like they got nothing to lose. they typically are willing to put themselves in places that will compromise them physically to endure, just for the will that they don't want to give up and disappoint themselves or their people. And Ali fought like that, you know, like you can tell the man didn't have a silver spoon. He had to earn it. And I question that thing about Joshua, to where he didn't have that something. He didn't have that something that he had to overcome that let him know that he could endure and push through even when stuff was hard and stuff. Like, I don't see that in him when he boxes.
So
you didn't see that in the Klitschko fight.
That's what I was about to ask.
I saw it in the Klitschko fight in terms of, so it's two different things. Do you know, so how the Klitschko fight, I'm gonna give a really quick synopsis. In the Klitschko fight, Joshua was landing first, and he was landing last. He was faster than Klitschko. He hit Klitschko first, he hit Klitschko last. He got Klitschko to a point to where he was like, oh, I'm about to unload and I'm about to take him out. So he was like, yes, I can stop Klitschko. So he tried to stop Klitschko. When he tried to stop Klitschko, Klitschko went down, and at that point he was tired. Even as Joshua. When he came back to start the fight again, or the round or whatever it was, now Joshua was tired, and now he got to fight the fact that now his speed edge and his whatever physicality edge is now gone because he's tired. So now the old man is literally just outboxing him because he has an equal playing field where physicality ain't an issue. So at this point, now you see the real character of the man. You see who the fuck he really is. Past all this other stuff, you see what he really made of. Like, it's all well and great for me to talk about, you know, I would do this, I would do that. But when I'm faced with an issue that I gotta like endure, push through, that's when the shit matters, you know. And sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't do well. But you live the fight again, Craig. But yeah, you saw who he really was. And so, with that being said, he continued to fold. You saw his confidence wane. You saw him question himself. Was he able to do it? And then he wasn't hurt. He was just like, I mean, fatigue is a motherfucker. I give you that. But he was pretty much quitting. Versus getting like knocked down and like truly hurt. So then once he was tired and then he started getting like touched, then he caught what's the name with the next uppercut, which he caught him again based off of physicality. And so then and only then did his confidence go back up again. So what I'm saying is he like the bully or something like that who sees, oh man, he's afraid of me, boy, I got him. And then that's when he's like, I'm gonna go all out now. Like, you know, the person that don't play, if they don't think they're gonna win, they won't really give their all. And so that's what I saw in that Klitschko fight. Yes, he had to endure. Yes, he had to overcome. Yes, I cannot take away from that. But all I'm saying is, when he did overcome, it was because the things were going in his favor. It wasn't because he, like, somebody who had to overcome and, like, endure something. Andre Ward was getting hit by Colbert-Arboleda, and he was getting hurt by a lot of them punches that Colbert-Arboleda was hitting with that right hand, with the right hand, straight right hand. Andre Ward had to go in the fire. He had to go in his breadbasket and risk getting hit again, but then he still did it. He still kept going to the body to get him to the end of the round so he won those late rounds. Like, that is a person who endures something. Joshua was he just benefited off them physical advantages. Gensler so happened to be supplemented by his technique, but it feels different to me. I'll let y'all rebuttal.
Go ahead first, World Rank.
No, James, you got it.
Okay. Now, from what you were talking about in reference to Anthony Joshua and kind of like describing Anthony Joshua to an extent about him kind of being a bully type, that, as long as he bullies his opponents, he has more confidence. You could say that for, a few heavyweights out there, like Deontay Wilder.
That's right.
Now, the thing about it is, and you talk about this thing with adversity and stuff like that. Now, Vladimir Klitschko was still regarded as the top level, or at least at the top level heavyweight. Like, he was supposed to fight Tyson Fury in the rematch. It wasn't Klitschko's fault that Fury didn't go forward with the rematch. So he still had that type of skill. He still had the experience. So if he had the ability to try to finish Anthony Joshua at that particular point, he could, because the thing with the fight going into it was that, okay, it's Anthony Joshua, but he's coming in there with the amount of fights, professional fights that he's had, going up against Vladimir Klitschko, who, with the exception of that one fight against Tyson Fury, was one of the most dominant heavyweights of all time, because of what he was able to do in the ring. So when Anthony Joshua got hit and then went down on one knee, off of Vladimir Klitschko, then you would have thought that Klitschko would be able to come off that, take advantage of it, and try to overwhelm Anthony Joshua. And he wasn't able to do that. And by not doing that, he got Joshua the ability to get himself back up and then get his, energy up, and then be able to finish off in the 10th and 11th rounds like he did. So to me, that's like a version of, adversity there, because that kind of like was a back and forth type of fight. It was a fight of the year in 2017 because of, what happened there. Like, you brought up the thing with Felix Verdejo, which I was going to talk about later on, with Verdejo against Nakatani. Nakatani got knocked down in the first round and then got knocked down again, I think, in the fourth and fifth round, but he was able to get up. And then you saw that he was able to just keep himself, keep going, staying consistent and stuff like that. Me with Verdejo, I just didn't think Verdejo was completely the goods anyway. But you saw that Verdejo kind of like overexerted himself to a certain extent, and that's why he ended up being, caught there in the ninth round. But with Anthony Joshua, like, you kind of like see what he could do inside in the inside game and the outside game. But once you're able to score very well, that's what you do. You use what's working best for you in the ring. If you don't have to take chances, then you don't. But because, like, if you trying to go, balls to the wall or try to get tired, I mean, we kind of saw what happened to, other opponents that have had a string of victories, had a string of knockouts, and then once they got, hit with the adversity, either they tire out or they get broken down and they basically get finished. So with Joshua, I think in this particular fight, he was able to utilize what he could and took advantage of everything that was open for him, which is what you should do against your opponent. Take advantage of what's open. Don't try to, force open a door that's bolted down. But, if you can't get it open, then you can't get it open. Find another entryway, And I think that's what it is with Anthony Joshua, at least with this particular performance, is that, like, whatever door's open, he used it. And if he could land, well on that, then that's it. But he also was kind of trying to say that, hey, it's not like I'm just a 100% brawler. Like, I've been able to utilize the jab and use the jab too over the course of my professional career. So why is it that people have forgotten that? So that's kind of how I approached that fight last night there between Anthony Joshua and Colbert-Arboleda. Go ahead, World Rank.
So I want to add something about the Wilder the Wilder thing and comparing him to Wilder. I don't know if it's a fair comparison or not, because one has been knocked out and the other one, well, not necessarily knocked out, but he was basically quit or stopped or whatever. But I feel like you can take the same approach with Mike Tyson. You can say Mike Tyson was a bully and he didn't, and if we're using it in the example that you're using it as, he doesn't have the same heart as somebody compared to Wilder. And I don't think that's a fair assessment, nor do I think Wilder, this is his first time being tested and being challenged with things. He has yet to come back yet. Not saying that he won't, not saying that he will, but he has yet to come back from his testament. It's like, because he's saying all these things and saying that he wants to die in the ring or he wants to kill somebody in the ring, it seems like we're automatically saying that he's built differently. He has an opportunity right now to do the same thing that other past heavyweight champions have done. Come back and regain their crown. He has yet to do that. This is his first test at adversity. And people could say that he failed that by saying the glove thing or saying the costume issue. So it's like we can't necessarily pick and choose like who. I don't know how to clearly identify who has more heart. But to me, it's not that. But for Wilder, I don't see that he's fully came back and made his point that he's more adept at handling things better than any other fighter. And I don't know if he is or if he's not. I'm just saying that he hasn't made that clear. This is his first opportunity to do that.
So I would disagree on your statement wholeheartedly that this is his first test. So number one, in most of his fights, he has faced tests from people who were better than him technically. And in 48 fights, 49 fights, 41 fights, he has beaten or tied with people who have been better than him technically. So that's a small test in itself. To fight somebody and overcome, beat or tie a person who technically is more superior than you are. Second of all, in the test that he fought somebody more superior than him, including Luis Ortiz, when he was hurt in both fights, and he endured, the way he got out of the first Luis Ortiz fight, I think it was the first Ortiz fight where when he got hurt, he held on and he got out of that round. Like I can't do it now because it's been such a while since I saw it, but the way that he got out of it was very Floyd-esque. When Floyd got hit with that right hand from Shane Mosley, and Floyd held his hand under his armpit and then gave himself summoning for a second. Deontay Wilder had a moment when he did that. Where it wasn't, we can't compare it to Floyd because I've been Floyd been doing that situational stuff for a while. But he had a moment when he did that, and then he got out of that first Luis Ortiz fight. Second Luis Ortiz fight, I forgot when he got hurt in that fight, but I eventually know he eventually won that fight. Actually, he was losing every round. He didn't get hurt, he was losing every round, and then won. Yes, his physical just saved him right there. In the Tyson-Fury first fight, the rounds where he went jabbing, he could get beat pretty easy. And then when he jabbed, he made the rounds tougher. When he jabbed, he gained a certain level of respect for Tyson-Fury. I would wholeheartedly disagree to say that he hadn't been through tests before, because I can see the tests that he goes through in the ring. And I'm not diminishing Joshua's test against Klitschko, against Dylan White, against Ruiz, against all this other stuff. I'm talking about how he responds as a result of that test. Joshua, yes, was hurt. Yes, he was tired in the Ruiz fight, but you could tell in his mind he was thinking, I really don't want to be here. In his body language, the ref was like, do you want to continue? He didn't say, I want to continue. He always wanted to quit. The same way Daniel Dubois, it was exactly the same way. wanted to quit. Deontay Wilder was concussed. He had a bust eardrum. He was drugged. He was all this other stuff. He had.
Did you say drugged?
Noodle leg. And by the way, it ain't the smartest thing to do. I will say that. But I didn't take it that he was ready to quit. He was like, if anybody is kicking your butt and you are in a situation where you're like, man, I'm about to get it now. Like, I didn't see him like get me out of here. He was just like, I see this fall, and I know I gotta fight. Here we are, versus Joshua. Joshua's like, oh man, I want to give you a reason to get me out of here. So it's just like he was trying to get a referee to get him out of there. He was looking down at his corner the same way the ball was. Like it's a certain level. When you look at a fighter,
a certain level.
A certain response. Like, it's like he wanted somebody to save him. Was ready to get knocked out.
What? Okay. First things coming from what you're saying, and this is you kind of like said this in other occasions when it comes to Deontay Wilder. You kind of like bring up this thing about these other fighters being or having more technical skills than Deontay Wilder. But you kind of like look at these names and you're like, so these guys have more technical skill than Deontay Wilder. I'm not buying that. Not necessarily. Like, you have to develop some type of skills, even at 6'6", that you could utilize against opponents. So matching him up with certain guys kind of like builds his confidence up and has him try to develop those things. So that's how you were able to get the Deontay Wilder that fought Bamon Stavern in 2015. Like, that Deontay Wilder was able to, use a jab, fight off the back foot, keep Bamon Stavern at bay, and not be in any trouble. And does anyone kind of like say that that's a tentative Deontay Wilder? No. But having these other guys out here saying that they have more technical skill, I can't necessarily buy all of that, because you have to have one type of. So if I look at the guys like a Kirsten Maxwell or a Damon McCrary or a Kelvin Price or Matthew Greer, I don't see them as having more technical skill than Deontay Wilder. I just don't. It's just that with Wilder, he had the ability to kind of like use his power, use his like unorthodox method of throwing his punches that kind of gets his opponents off guard and stuns them, and then he's able to just go off of that momentum. So when you talk about what World Ranked is talking about with him going up against Tyson Fury in that second time, like he was getting beat and then he got knocked down. And then after he got knocked down, like, how was he going to be able to, come off of that? Because that was the first time. Well, let me take that back. That was not the first that Wilder was on the canvas. But but at that particular level, being that this was supposed to be the fight of the fights, the one that was going to determine who would be the number one heavyweight, because they would like award the Ring Magazine title to the winner. So he goes up there and he has that instance where he gets knocked down, And then after that, he, just didn't do what he could do in order to get himself back in the fight. I compare that to the first fight, 9th round. Wilder was able to catch Fury with the hook, put Fury down to the canvas. Fury gets up, and then when Wilder tries to get on him, Fury lands a counter shot that stops Wilder and stops his momentum. And Wilder could not follow through off of that. Same thing happened in the 12th round. Wilder thought that, I got this knockout. I'm going to be undefeated. I'm going to be, retain the WBC title at the time. And I'm going, straight to, seeing if I could get a big money fight now against Anthony Joshua. But then Fury gets up and he does the same thing. He catches Wilder once again and then has Wilder backing up. So you talk about like dealing with some type of adversity. You kind of like saw it on both sides from Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Tyson Fury was able to respond to the 2 knockdowns, but Deontay Wilder couldn't necessarily get himself going there, after being knocked down in the first time, and then in that fight, and then having his equilibrium be all off kilter. So, I kind of like feel like, Deontay Wilder, like Roy Wink was saying, like we got to see him in another fight, and for him not to, get himself in the ring against, Tyson Fury, kind of like says something here, and I'm not sure when the next time will be there for, Deontay Wilder. I know that they were talking about some things with the arbitration and whatnot, but it just remains to be seen how that will, basically go from that instance. But going back into this thing here with Joshua and Pulev, man, I mean, looked like Pulev. I don't know what Pulev was on because he felt like he would still be going at it even after being knocked out. So he must have been, they must have had some type of thing in his system, I guess, But I just feel like that was a pretty good performance there from Anthony Joshua, and we see what happens next for him. You have Bob Arum saying, well, we're going to have the fight. It's going to be the biggest fight since Ali and Frazier. You have Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua for the undisputed heavyweight championship. And from what I'm hearing, that Paco guy from the WBO is saying, hold up a minute. Yeah, we got this little mandatory that's overdue. So about that undisputed title fight, y'all going to have to hold off on that. Now, if that actually happens, the WBO, they're going to be slammed for months upon months if they actually go through with having the WBO mandatory take place. But it just remains to be seen on that. Wanted to go into, the next thing there. Since we were talking about one of the fights in this fight card that was over in Las Vegas, there at MGM Grand, Shakur Stevenson going up against Colbert-Arboleda at 130 pounds. And I think a lot of people were kind of like trying to see what would happen there with Shakur Stevenson. You had, of course, the opener there, Edgar Berlanga, with another first-round knockout. Then you had the co-featured bout there with Verdejo against Nakatani, and Nakatani was able to, get the win there with that 9th-round knockout. So Shakur Stevenson just looked like, okay, I'm gonna get here, I'm gonna execute and do my thing, and then it just, went to a decision win over Clary. Clary just didn't do anything at all. He just looked like he was just putting his guard up and just throw a couple punches, put his guard up, and things like that. He never really got caught with any shots that kind of seriously hurt him. And for someone that wants to, try to make a statement at 130 pounds and the plans that he has at 130 pounds, I'm not getting some people feeling like that was a good performance there out of Shakur Stevenson. World ranked. I want to get your thoughts on it first.
I didn't see the fight, but I was just I'm more outside the ring.
Yeah.
So my thought process is like, and I get, you gotta have exciting people, and then you gotta have exciting fights on the cards and all that good stuff. But when you have a special talent, you must match them up right. You can't have a world-class operator in there killing the audience for 12 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
That just cannot happen. They have to take the approach of the Floyd Mayweather approach. You have to get this guy in with somebody who's going to try to bang with him. Every fight has to be like that, because he's not going to generate the attraction that his talent gives him if he doesn't do that. And one of my tweets earlier today, people do not want to see world-class guys go 12 rounds. They'd rather see good guys that aren't as good. And Shakur posted something about he's going to keep doing his thing, and I responded with a retweet basically saying, Champ, they don't want to see you. They just want to see club fighters excited. So he has to bring that excitement factor to his fights. In order for him to do that, he must be matched right. And putting him in with guys that are not going to try to make a fight is going to kill any type of attention that he should be generating. And they must do right by him, because they clearly ain't do right by Terrence Crawford. And they need to put him in with the Valdez or the Burcho. Otherwise, he's not going to make the impression we should.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like seeing, when you did do a retweet of one of Shakur Stevenson's posts from last night, and it kind of like goes into like how some fans want to see, action type fights. But, we also kind of like followed it up. Yeah.
They had to, I don't know if they're right clothes, you know what I'm saying? But this guy is a club fighter, and you see all these, and no disrespect to him. You know what I'm saying? No disrespect to any fighter. I'm just saying, like, it's a certain demographic of people who are lesser fighters just because they look like them or just because they're exciting. And I don't think, to me, I'm a guy who wants the best fight the best, and I don't really care if the styles don't mesh. I just want to see the best fight the best, because that's what I care about. But I understand there's an entertainment value in that. But to be popping up these guys, these Gotti type guys, these Castillas type guys, just because they're a certain way, I don't think that's fair to the world class people who's working out here, working their ass off to be world champions. I don't think that's fair.
Well, I mean, going into this weekend, one of the kind of like jokes, so to speak, in the boxing world was that when a group of boxing writers were kind of like putting in their votes for like fight of the year or fighter of the year or something like that, that somebody actually put in a vote for Clay Collard. They put in a vote for Clay Collard to be fighter of the year this year. And, someone that was, that could have basically been easily written off if he, lost his next fight that was coming in at the, restart of this year. But just because he has a string of wins against, guys that are, either mid-level or below mid-level, that doesn't, constitute as someone being considered for fighter of the year. But that's kind of like, that goes to your point as far as like, some people that have the skill, that, have the talent and things like that don't necessarily, get enough credit there. But and maybe Shakur Stevenson is kind of like an example of that. But it's like the thing with Shakur Stevenson, it seems like he's getting compared to a lot of the guys that are around his age bracket. The Gervonta Davis, he's much younger, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, that type of thing. And so you have some of those guys, and those guys seem like they get those type of highlights or those type of moments against opponents. But on the flip side, like when people don't see it from Shakur Stevenson, they're like, yo, what's up with this guy? How come he's not taking these guys out? And it kind of like rubs off on them negatively. So that I think that's kind of like the takeaway of what happens in that particular instance there from Shakur Stevenson. Like I'm gonna break it down a little bit more with Shakur. Mike, were you able to catch that last fight, or did you kind of like turn it off after the Verdejo Nagatani fight?
Yeah, I tried to watch it, I see through it, so it's kind of boring. I try to be funny to him, but yeah, I was kind of bored with this fight. I fell asleep to it.
Well, I kind of feel you on that, but also in a one of the elements too was that the way that they kind of like handled the timing of this card was like yikes. Because I was like, what is it? Excuse me. Like about, what was it, like a shade after, it was like near 12 or a little bit after 12, and the Verdejo fight was still going. And this is after, Berlanga gets a first round knockout, and you can tell me that you couldn't have, this other fight come through, but that's kind of like what ends up happening is you have all this filler time, and the main event, the event where the guy's supposed to be showcased is on so late that people aren't either up to seeing it, or they try to get through the first couple rounds and they're like, I'm not seeing much from them, so either I'm gonna just turn it off or I'm gonna just go to sleep. So I kind of like understand how, some people could, criticize that performance from Shakur Stevenson. But the thing is like he's kind of like built as one guy that has defensive skills. So that's pretty much where his base comes from, is his high defensive skill. Not anything where he kind of like uses power or like overwhelming speed or something like that. That's not kind of like where he comes from. It's more based on his defensive prowess and things like that, and being able to build off of that. But he does say that he has big plans for next year and the next couple years. Like before this fight, he thought that he could try to pull off the winner of Jamel Herring versus Carl Frampton by March. I don't see that, because I see Jamel Herring, even though he's in camp over in Colorado Springs, like I don't see him fighting Carl Frampton until maybe January 16th or one of those weekends after that. And so with that being said, there's no way that they're going to have a quick turnaround to have that winner of that fight be right back in camp for a fight of magnitude of fighting Shakur Stevenson. So coming back in March, I don't see it there for Shakur Stevenson. And he said if he gets through that, then he wants to fight Miguel Berchelt. Guess he don't see Oscar Valdez, beating Miguel Berchelt. And then after that, a fight against Gervonta Tank Davis. So he has big plans, for the near future. It's just, will they be able to be put together for him there? I know that one person that usually calls in said that Andre Ward is not part of the managerial team there for Shakur Stevenson. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But I think it kind of came off of the thing where it fell out between Shakur Stevenson and Josh Warrington. You know, that the back and forth that happened, trying to get that fight made, and that, you know, Ward kind of like nixed it. That probably was why he is not part of the managerial team there for Shakur Stevenson anymore. So I thought that was pretty interesting there, and you know, finding that out.
He didn't really critique the fight or whatever during the, you know, announcing or whatever. He kind of was a little bit quiet.
Yeah, I thought he went back and forth a little bit, you know, a little bit with Tim Bradley as far as like that goes. So so
You guys think that's a good thing?
what, him being careful about his critiques?
Nah, not being with Stevenson Company.
Well, as far as like managerial things are concerned, I mean, I guess conflict of interest, maybe, I don't know. But I think he still has, you know, a couple words that go into Shakur Stevenson's ear when it comes to his career. It's just not, you know, he's just not being as involved as he used to be. That's just, I mean, that's what I think is the difference.
Yeah, I think Ward would probably be more careful with Stevenson's career than probably what top rank and probably even what Stevenson would actually want.
Yeah, that's kind of like how I felt about it. Is that, yeah, with him, you know, being, you know, having the experience that he has. I mean, it would be, you know, good for Stevenson, but I guess he just wanted to hold off as far as like being involved in Shakur Stevenson's career. So we kind of like held back on that, you know. That's kind of like how I approached it. You know, I wanted to like touch on the one other fight that was at super featherweight that was over in Uncasville, Connecticut. That was on, you know, that was there in Connecticut. Chris Colbert, prime time, going up against Jaime Arboleda. I mean, it was just a performance where Colbert, I mean, he pretty much like won most of the rounds going into that 11th round, and just was able to just get a string of power shots and try to, you know, get Arboleda out of there in the 11th round. And once he got Arboleda hurt, then he went in and made the moves to finish off Arboleda. So he got the good finish there to knock out Arboleda, and, you know, like I said, get his 6th KO win. He's there at 15-0, and has, you know, he's still like an interim WBA super featherweight champion. So, like, I got to see like where he stands at the 130-pound division, because he's held that interim belt for a little bit, and at 130 pounds, he got like, of course, like 5, you know, different fighters that hold a belt, or a version of a belt for the WBA. So you got like guys like Rene Alvarado, of course. Tank Davis is the super champ, and you know, they also have a gold champ. So yeah, I gotta see like what he could do there. Maybe he could fight Leo Santa Cruz, but I doubt that they'll put Leo Santa Cruz against someone like Chris Colbert. I doubt it. You know. Any thoughts on prime time?
Nah, he was in career. He was in a little documentary I was watching. I forgot the name of it. It was a good documentary. Was kind of showing his life as an amateur. It was a couple years ago, but He looks to be a good prospect. Got a lot of hand speed. Got a little power in him, which he showed last night. Something that, he's in the same weight class as Stevenson. He showed, something that Stevenson didn't show. Just the step on the gas to try to get somebody out of it.
Right.
He actually tried and pressed the issue with that fight. I think personally he's going to take the place of Gervonta Davis, and not in terms of anything, like in terms of talent or nothing like that, but in terms of PBC's main guy at 130. I think he's going to be the guy that PBC props up at 130 as their guy. Now that Davis moving up to 35, so I think you will see more over as a main event guy. They're going to showcase him a little more, and he's probably going to be PBC's guy at 130 now that Davis moves up.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like see that being a possibility there. Once Tank moves up, that they'll put Chris Colbert out there. I'm trying to see if there may be somebody else that he could fight. Like if Tank Davis does move up and gives up that title, they may have that vacated title there. With Chris Colbert going up against Xavier Martinez, because Martinez fought in Uncasville against Claudio Marrero back in October, the weekend before that Tank Davis Leo Santa Cruz fight. So if they're trying to boost or showcase Chris Colbert as their guy at 130 pounds, then they may have him going up against Xavier Martinez next year. If that WBA Super Championship is vacated by Tank Davis. So, that could be next there for Chris Colbert there. I don't feel like I should ask, but Mike, were you able to take a look at Prime Time or not?
I feel kind of slighted a bit.
Nah, don't. You don't need to feel slighted. You don't, because I'm gonna be honest with you. I was looking at the social media, boards and things like that. Like, of course, he had a lot of attention towards Anthony Joshua and things like that. But outside of that, you had people looking at Shakur Stevenson and trying to see what Shakur Stevenson was going to do, and also what Felix Verdejo was going to do. So outside of that, you really didn't get much viewing coming from, the thing for Chris Colbert going up against Jaime Arboleda. So I just didn't, have much attention for that particular fight and that particular fight card. Fortunately, you did have, the thing there with, what was it? In the co-feature, Matt Korobov, he ended up getting injured in his fight, and that ended up being a stoppage there. So he ended up losing, and the guy that was part of the card there, Ron Ellis, we could have had Ronald Ellis on here for this show, but I didn't think that was going to be possible. So maybe able to get in contact with them sometime later this week. So we may have Ronald Ellis on here to talk about that fight against Matt Korobov. But you have that, and then the I think it was the Richardson Hitchens against Algenis Mendez, where it looked like people kind of like we're talking about the scoring in that fight, like it was way off or something. So, but as far as like a card overall, like a lot of people weren't necessarily looking forward to it compared to the others.
I just that, Stevenson is being touted as a defensive first fighter, then yeah, you do need a complementary style that'll make it either you either need a guy in there that to win and beat him, or you need a style that'll make his style shine and show the beauty behind his style. Because otherwise, if he's always in a winnable, fight that he's gonna win or is a favorite, there's nothing great in that. But if you don't have the matador and the bull and stuff,
yeah,
most people, it's not very exciting. And then he fights sort of like an amateur, so then there's that.
Yep. Like a fight. Yeah, I was saying a fight against, Burchell, where Burchell is like an offensive fighter, then yeah, from a style standpoint, that will work well for Shakur Stevenson. But, outside of that, you really don't have that many, matchups there that they could put him in at 130 pounds that could kind of like, do that, because like a fight between him and Jamel Herring. Like Jamel Herring, like kind of like works off the jab, but he's not very, overtly offensive in his repertoire. So that might not look good as far as like styles are concerned. But like with Shakur Stevenson, it's kind of like seeing him. It's kind of like seeing that fight that happened in November with Devin Haney and Yuriorkis Gamboa. Like Devin Haney. Like has the skill or whatever it is, but going up against someone like Yuriorkis Gamboa that wasn't really willing to engage, it didn't make for a visually pleasing fight. So you got to be able to match these guys up with someone that could, be willing to engage or be, very offensive and leave themselves open to kind of like bring out what people want to see in them. So. They kind of like gets into what you're talking about. Go ahead, World Rank.
So I would say the fight with Shakur was a joke at the they had a little build up with the sister and him dating the sister and all that good stuff. They did it right that time. I think they just need to continue to try to get more into his personality and things like that. Like. You have, and you can pay me for less than money than you pay these matchmakers, and I think I can do a better job in terms of just putting the styles together. Like to me, there should be no reason why Shakur ever faces like any type of guy who's not gonna come forward and try to take his head off. There should never be a fight, even if they left out of him and he's supposed to win. At least he'll look good in those type of fights. It doesn't always have to be, even matchup, but at least give it something that's going to be entertaining, because he cannot be in those type of fights. I'm not saying that his style is similar to Sean Porter. Having a dance partner, those two guys are the two guys that need a dance partner that's going to be good, essentially. Somebody who's gonna make the fight. Because if you get Sean Porter by himself, like when he fought for Mella, he fight some of these low B-level guys, it's not that fun. So you gotta make sure that you put these guys and get it, if you're gonna prop these guys up, put their best foot forward. Don't just throw them in because you got 50 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. Definitely feel you on that. Yeah, that type of matchup those type of matchups just don't work from a stylistic standpoint. If you have these guys that are going to get up against opponents that really don't look like they, have much of a shot against them. So it kind of like muddies up the waters a little bit. Like, I mean, you brought up Sean Porter as an example. Like, look at his fights that he had against Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, and Errol Spence. Like, those were, great fights. They're very good fights. But when he goes up against like a guy like a Sebastian Formella, it just doesn't look good stylistically. So I think with like I said, with Shakur Stevenson, that he has to be in there against someone that could kind of like bring a little bit more out of him. Maybe they might have a like someone like who is it, like Abraham Nova. Maybe Abraham Nova is part of their team. I think he was in there against who is it, against Hank Lundy or somebody like that. That they could put up against Shakur Stevenson, and it might work pretty well there, because like you can't have like have him against like a Jamel Herring. That might not look good stylistically. Or maybe they could have him against Andrew Cancio, who moved up. But yeah, I feel like Abraham Nova might be the guy that could be matched up next against the Shakur Stevenson before he has his fight for a world title. But I think he wants to have that world title shot next. And it's going to be against, the Jamel Herring Carl Frampton winner. So that's what we got there. Wanted to look ahead to next weekend, or the 19th. Of course, we got Canelo versus Smith, and also on the 18th, there's supposedly a big drama show, but unfortunately, I really don't want to get too much into that. Also, I think former world champion at super middleweight, Gilberto Ramirez is actually going to be fighting on the 18th, man. So I guess he's able to get a fight. He'll be fighting against Alfonso Lopez. So I guess that's good for him to actually finally get a fight, but who knows what else is going to happen with that. And then you had the whole thing for the PBC fight card. Like you were supposed to have Nonito Donaire there against was it Emmanuel Rodriguez or what it is, or actually it might be more than that. Actually, I think it was Donaire, and I was trying to look that up because it was supposed to be for the WBC title in that weight class there at bantamweight. Yeah, Donaire against Subali there. And that was supposed to be for the WBC bantamweight title. Then first, it was Nordito Bali that got tested positive for COVID. So they tried to make the fight between Donaire against, there's a Rodriguez. And then Donaire gets tested positive. So now Emmanuel Rodriguez is going to fight Raymart Caballo for their interim title there. So, but after that fight happens, I'll be interested to see how that's going to sort itself out. I just feel like Donaire is going to fight Ubali for the WBC belt, and then the winner of this fight will fight that winner next, and that's how that's going to be handled. But you also have Jerome Boots Enos there going up against Chris Van Heerden, and Boots was supposed to fight, some other fighter there in that part, and they got tested positive for COVID. I think it was Delorme, Thomas Delorme. He got tested positive for COVID. So they were trying to still, fit in Boots Enos for that fight card for a couple of reasons. So for them to find Chris Van Heerden to fill in that slot, that was kind of like good there for Boots in that instance. And it's a good little thing there to get someone like a Van Heerden that has a good amount of experience to see like how Boots kind of like performs against him in the 10-round bout. And then you also have Gary Antonio Russell at bantamweight going up against former champion and Juan Carlos Payano. So there with Antonio, he's going up against someone with a good amount of experience as well in that particular fight. Shout out to the Russell family. They lost a family member, yesterday. I think it was yesterday morning. So they're kind of like going through it here over these next couple of days, and then you still have Gary Antonio preparing for this fight against Juan Carlos Baiano. So that is the fight card there for Uncasville, Connecticut. And like I said, man, Canelo, man, going up against Callum Smith there for the 19th. And I mean, I don't know how they did it, but hey, WBC may stand for We Back Canelo, because they were able to add in the vacant WBC super middleweight title to be on the line here in this fight. That's kind of funny there. But, they also were supposed to have a title defense there from, what is it? Who is it? Who are they going to feature there? Oh, Julio Cesar Martinez, the WBC flyweight champion. He was supposed to be on this card, but he also got tested positive for COVID. So he is out of that card. And, these other fights, well, I don't know if anybody would be interested in those, man. Yeah, man, But either way, it was like, even with the thing for, the Julio Cesar Martinez, like he was like just having a, general WBC title defense. So it wasn't really against, I don't think, anyone that was highly ranked in the WBC. So, I mean, it is what it is. We know that people are paying attention to this main event anyway, to see what Canelo could do against a guy that's like 6'3", 6'4". It has the reach that Canelo-Smith has. So while Canelo's there at 5'9" with a 72-inch reach, so I mean it'll be interesting for how it lasts. I just think that Callum Smith is someone that's a guy that's fairly offensive fighter. With his, height and things like that, he tries to, or attempts to overwhelm his opponents, but I think he's more of a come forward style type of fighter. And Canelo loves to move, side to side laterally, tries to roll with a lot of the punches that his opponent throws. So Callum Smith got to be prepared for that. Definitely prepared for counter shots, and how he's going to be able to take counter shots will be the story here in this fight. Just seeing here what y'all are looking for coming up next weekend.
I want to look forward to see if this guy will use his whatever height and jab and move around the ring and win I'm not gonna call it easy, because I think Canelo could do the whole cut out the ring, body shot, et cetera, but will he be able to use his height and distance and jab and stay away from Canelo and win rounds by using his height? Because that's what I would do. I mean, who cares what I would do? But I'm just saying, if I was possessed that type of height, advantage over another man who's that small, tactically, that's what you gotta do. Like, yes, people gonna be like, whatever. Yes, they gonna still take the fight away from you when it goes to the cards, but that's the way you win. Or give yourself a chance to get there with whatever.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, you kind of seen it a little bit in the Kovalev fight, because Kovalev was like using the jab there against Canelo to try to score points. So that's the thing that we might, try to look for with Callum Smith, if he's able to use the jab and try to work off of that. But if he gets himself or allows himself to have the ring be cut off, and Canelo being able to tee off to the body then it may lead to him getting touched up in upstairs. And we saw what happened with Kovalev. So that could happen, with him. Or maybe he ends up being like his brother Liam Smith and gets folded by a body shot. So who knows? What you got, World Rank?
I'm very curious to see how Smith fight. I don't think I don't think he's gonna be able to keep the fight on the outside. The John Ryder fight proved that Canelo's gonna get inside, and I don't think Callum Smith. Now, if you had told me this fight was happening a year or a year and a half ago, I'd have thought Callum Smith had a great shot. But after that Ryder fight and Canelo, what he did to Kovalev, I can't see Callum Smith boxing on the outside. I don't think he's good enough to not allow Canelo on the inside. And when Canelo gets on the inside, the body is going to be there. And I think the uppercut might be there as well. And for me, the only question is, can Callum Smith keep it close somehow? Because Canelo's already at 3 rounds in the cards. So Callum Smith is not a knockout puncher. So to me, I don't really think he has any chance because I don't think he has any chance to knock out Canelo, and he's already 3 rounds down. So for me, it's just a matter: is he going to stay the 12 rounds, or is he going to get stopped, like you said, like his brother late in the fight?
Yeah, it's already that you're going into San Antonio, Texas, there where kind of like Canelo has been pretty much favored a little bit. So I'm like kind of like looking at it to where, yeah, Callum Smith would have a little bit of a trailing or deficit going into this fight, and I don't see him like trying to go at it like he fought George Groves, where he was able to just break down George Groves, but George Groves just really couldn't move that much at all anyway. And you compare that to a Canelo Alvarez who's been able to do that even at 174 pounds or whatever it was when he weighed in against Sergey Kovalev. So, with that being said, that's Callum has to figure out how he's going to be able to, maneuver around the approach from Canelo Alvarez, where especially if Canelo Alvarez is able to take Callum Smith shots and still come back. Like, I feel like even, there at 168, that Canelo Alvarez has better overall strength there at 168 or better power than Callum Smith. So I think Callum Smith's going to have to throw punches and bunches to, really have much of a shot here against Canelo Alvarez. And it might kind of be similar to a fight that we saw on October 31st between Gervonta Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz, where Santa Cruz was very active with the hands, but just could not take the power of his opponent. And it may be the same case here. You may see that happening here once again as Canelo Alvarez may end up breaking down or get to the inside of Callum Smith and just hit him with a good power shot that really, really will hurt Callum Smith. So that's pretty much how I see that fight going on Saturday there. But, with that being said, pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover in this particular podcast. This will be available on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So y'all be sure to give this a listen if you're not listening, or if you missed parts of the live telecast here. You'll be right back at it on December 20th to talk about that Canelo Smith fight, and also the fights there with Boots Ennis. They're going up against Chris Van Heerden, and also, the interim title fight that's going to happen there between Emmanuel Rodriguez and his opponent Remar Carballo, who was it's like ranked number 1 in the bantamweight rankings there. So we'll see how that kind of like turns out. But in the meantime, hopefully y'all be able to catch us next week. And like I say at the end of every show, folks, Point Boxing is a hit, not get hit, not to stand and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.